Welcome to Living Chassidus. Together, let's live the Chassidus we learn.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Chassidus in the Morning. 15 minutes to change your life. Mitzvah Hashem. The continuing on in the Maimah al Kein up to Weiss Zion. Basically, what we're saying is like this, and we've been talking about this, but it's going to bring it out more in this Weiss. The last Weiss, nice above, we said Achashverosh is referring to Hashem, level of Hashem, the Achashverosh Shalei, and still bad things happen to the Jewish people. So what we're going to discuss this is that this is not the level that we're talking about when we're talking about a girl, a lottery. We're talking about lottery is even deeper than this. And therefore, even though Achashverosh is referring to Hashem, it's talking about level of Hashem. That there's an Acharis and there's a Rashis. The beginning is an end. There's even though we say yesterday it's a circle, but it still has a relationship to different levels. And therefore, and Haman realized even on that level of Achashverosh, meaning even Achashverosh himself, that the Jewish people weren't having the best of times, but that wasn't enough to destroy the Jewish people. A girl had to be brought. Let's see. So therefore, we can say the reason why Haman specifically chose the lottery, which is highly said is because even though he's living in a time that Achashverosh, which was, like we said before, yesterday was bringing darkness. Hushchup name Shel Yisrael. He darkened the face of Jewish people that was suffering, not having a bad time. So and meaning, and like we said yesterday, that we're talking about a level of this godliness that he's in charge, and this is what's happening. God's letting this happen. So why did he have to make a girl? Why not just destroy Jewish people? I'm in this perfect setting for this, seemingly. The way he was acting, that the way the world was at the time for the Jewish people, with Achashverosh being in charge, it was l'mayla mishtalshlus. So why is he choosing a poor? Why is that? Why does he need the poor? Why not this level of reality that's going on? So the reason is the fish bechinas hageirol l'mayla yaser gam bechinas Achashverosh, because the girl is on an even higher level than Achashverosh. Which is what's Achashverosh? The beginning, though the end and the beginning is his. So what does it mean? Because Achashverosh is talking about is l'mayim miserish tashlus, and the girl was saying l'mayim miserish tashlus. What's the difference between the two? Meaning the two forms of reality and the way that God interacts with the world, and both of those realities, the way that God acts in this world is on this level l'mayim miserish tashlus. So what's the difference between the two? Is there the fact that we call him Achashverosh, which means Mish Achashverosh Shalai, the beginning, the end, and the beginning is his. So what does it show us? Muchach shegam legabe yeshnam hanyanim ta'achashverosh. That even on this level, it's a higher than Sedish Tashlus. It's above nature. The way that God is, it's much deeper level of godliness. But ultimately, there's always an Acharis and a Rashis. There's an end and there's a beginning. There's some form of limitation. And ultimately, there's found some form of limitation, God recognizes what's going on. But in regards to Hashem, they're equal. Meaning this is a very nuanced point. That in regards to Achashverosh, on one hand, by Hashem, we're all equal, but on the other hand, there's also a beginning and an end. There's differences, there's levels. And he gives an explanation, like for example, like it says here, they have a parable of here in regards to the Mishkan. The Mishkan is, it's godliness and it's total revelation of godliness. The Mishkan was made specifically from 4 different types of elements. There was the earth, there was the wood, there was the animal, they brought up the carbon, and to signify, to bring in all these levels, even though it's talking about a level of godliness, but together a level of godliness, it also has these different categories. So we're showing on one hand there's godliness, on the other hand there's also categories. And we can can make this more clear on what it says. So what happens in the story of Purim? That it says in the Megillah that he made a whole big fancy party in the beginning. What happens? Then he made another one for all the people in Shushan. It's good to explain. The revelation that was for everyone was different than it was for his ministers and his servants. So those different levels. Weiss, if we can add, even in the revelation that was revealed to all the people, because remember, we're talking about Achashverosh, and so to speaking about in terms of like Hashem. So even in the time of the story, those different levels, there was a Sarvavadav, the ministers and the workers, and there was the simple people, and everyone got different. Like he says, different levels. Those people, it says in the story, the people that were fitting to go into the koyad. So you're good enough, you're lucky enough, you get to the koyad. But even that, just the koyad. Then you have a royal legina, then you have the garden. So you got into a deeper level. So we're seeing different levels again. Royal labisan, and we'll go to the pavilion. So we're seeing here there's different levels, and so clearly, even though we're talking Achashverosh, we're talking about this level of godliness that it's so above and beyond. But even though it's and the Jewish people aren't having such a good time, and that's a good enough reason why it doesn't Haman try to destroy the Jewish people from that level. It's because even on that level, there's still levels. So it's possible to say, by Seder Shtalshalus, the revelation of godliness they can receive is by Seder Shtalshalus. And the fact is, really, it's going to them and everyone else. To the extent that people they can't even get into the building, just get into the courtyard. They're like outside the front. All the fish it's because the revelation is coming from Achashverosh, and like we explained before, Achashverosh represents Achashverosh, that it is godliness, but it's there's differences. Some people can go to the palace, some people can go to the garden, some can go to the pavilion, some can go not even just to the courtyard. Some people just stand outside and watch from the outside. Everyone is different levels. The revelation to the people is much lower level. The Gamba Gili La'am, also in the relation to the people themselves, those different levels. What does it mean that the beginning and the end is his? Then the beginning is his. In regards to this level of godliness, that in regards to the level of godliness, that really the end and the beginning are all equal. But when that revelation of godliness comes into the world, when it gets mitzamtzim, so to speak, it gets contracted into this world, in the higher world, which is Reishis, it's more revealed. In the lower worlds, it's achris, it's less. So what we're saying is, even though we're talking about a level of godliness, it's the Mayim Shedish Talish, is above nature. It's totally away above and beyond. Deep level of God. When it comes down, it expresses itself differently from different levels. So that's all by the Achashverosh. Because like we're saying, remember, we're saying why yesterday we talked about Achashverosh, level of higher than Seder Shtalshalus. We said it's cervical almond. It's it's a kachashech. I don't know if we said it with that one. It was the other level. It was the girl. But we're saying above and beyond. If so, why wasn't that good enough for Haman? He wanted to show the Jewish people. And so what he realized that, like we said before, that ultimately it's never going to work by nature, because Malay mitzvahs krimain, the Yid is full of mitzvahs like a rimain, and therefore he's never going to be able to. Him being a bad guy, a Rasha, and them and the Yid Malay mitzvahs krimain, is never going to work. So what we're coming to explain here is 1 second why doesn't it work? The time period is a time period of Achashverosh being in charge. And a level of godliness it's above nature, and on that level it's above nature, like we said before, and that's good enough to destroy the Jewish people. He didn't have to make a whole girl. what's the girl? The girl is also above Sedish Tashlis. It's seemingly the same thing that he's achieving. Why is he trying to do this? Why doesn't he do this? Isn't there enough the situation they're in? It says, that their faces were darkened from the suffering they were having. So why didn't you just come to destroy them? Why do you have to make a whole girl? So that's what he's explaining now. The girl, there's no end and beginning. So even though the girl is higher than Sedish Talshus, and Achashverosh is also higher than Sedish Talshus, they're both above nature, but by Achashverosh, there's still levels take place. So meaning in simple terms, after all said and done, even on this level of godliness that is way above, that no one matters, we still matter. It's still good and bad. By God Himself, it doesn't really matter, but as it comes down, it starts to matter. And then it goes back to the original problem that Yisrael, Malay, Mitzvah, we're full of mitzvahs, like a pomegranate. Therefore, automatically, He's not going to destroy us. Because what's the girl? It's two equal things. If there's acharis and rashis, this is an end and the beginning. That's not two equal things. It's the beginning, that's an end. And I'll say base. Now, when you have the Milo Mata, the above and below, therefore, al derech zehu gam b'nei gerel kedusha zitracha. So you have this concept of kedusha zitracha. Shemitzad adari de Achashverosh in God's level of Achashverosh, ish chiluk be kedusha zitracha. There's a difference between holiness and zitracha. And automatically, if there's that difference, it's never going to work. He's not going to destroy the Jewish people that way. Because of the level of Achashverosh, of godliness on this level, is such a high level, ain't toifus makim kokach. It doesn't really matter. And he gives an example here. Therefore, on this level, even the sitracha, even the negative forces can get, like Achashverosh Vashtas. That Achashverosh is there and he's destroying the Jewish people and he's successful in making life hard for the Jewish people. And he's not a good person and he's getting so much. And also Haman, they're getting good. But this is a high level godliness. It's sort of the world is sort of insignificant, but it's not totally insignificant. Chash, the klippa noiga v'rosh gilkus meis. Achashverosh is saying it's a representative of the klippas noiga and the gimel meis, even the three impure things, and they're still being able to get. His gabrus to the extent that the sitra achra, the negative forces, the things that go against godliness, can rule over kedusha, holiness, the right things. That's how bad it is. But ultimately, there's still these things. Dark in the face of Jewish people. So he goes, he explains this on according to a mashal. You can say this is like, for example, samamim, biyadayim, and titafes, that there's a spider seizes its prey in the corner of the room in the king's palace. It's in the king's palace. What happens? In the king's palace, in the corner, there's the cleaning crew doesn't do such a good job, and in the corner there's like a little spider doing its thing. Now it's not respectful, it's not clean, but you think the king does anything about it? It's not good, but it doesn't really matter to it. But it's still there, but it still exists. It's dirtying the hechel, the palace. It's not clean. It's eating. The whole thing is not good. But because the king is exaltedness, you think the king cares about the spider's web in the corner? Oh, whatever. You might see it even. It's like, whatever, the cleaning crew doing a good job. But it doesn't care about it. Why? Because the king is so exalted. Like we talked about before, and ants across the street, what do I care? But it'll never destroy them, meaning the Jewish people, even though he darkened the face of Jewish people, but he's never going to destroy them, meaning even though there's things going on in the palace, he doesn't really care so much, but if it gets out of hand, like, whoa, what's going on over here? Get rid of that, and he'll take care of it. Yeah. Ukashabikesh Haman Lahashman is called Yudis. Then Haman comes to destroy the Jewish people. Chas v'shalom Mahaya Leisia that Chas v'shalom should never be. Hipil Pur her girl. That's why Haman makes the lottery. But what we're saying is that seemingly, why doesn't Haman make a lottery? Just follow, go use Achashverosh. Just say, Achashverosh, listen, I want to destroy the Jewish people. Let's go do this. It's never going to work. Because even though the king, we're talking about a level of godliness, that the way he's interacting with the world, he's so removed, he doesn't really care. But ultimately, he still does care. That's what we've been explaining till now. Therefore, he has to make a girl, a lottery. Because the lottery is above all that. It's above him even caring. That even though things are going on, he doesn't care at all. Not because he doesn't care, because he's so exalted, so lofty, so distant from it. It doesn't take up any space. Let me just finish the paragraph quickly. When you reach the girl, because the lottery is two equal things, so then holiness and klippa, they're equal. Like I said in Ois Gimel, that the girl is even higher, not just higher than intellect, but even higher than Ratzin of Torah mitzvahs. At that point, God doesn't care about Torah mitzvahs. It's so deep within him, he doesn't care. It's like a parent doesn't care what the child does. Of course, you want the child to do the right thing, but there's a level that the fact that your child is enough. So what he's trying to do is reach this level above all of these things. So it don't really matter. He doesn't matter, and the Yidden don't matter, which will never happen on the level of Achashverosh. That's why he has to make a lottery. Therefore, he thought he'd be able to be successful in what he was trying to do. So essentially, what we're saying here is that Haman realized that even though Achashverosh was in charge and he had the power, and he was we're saying in spiritual terms, the level of godliness was so exalted and so disconnected from what was going on in the world. The world didn't really matter. Together with all of that, he also realized that as high as that level is of godliness, that we're so insignificant, there's still a level of significance. And a Yid's significance matters. So he decided to make a girl, which is above all that we are literally insignificant. Between a Yid and a girl, between a good person and a bad person, Yamach Shemoy, the worst of people, or Stalin, to bring it back to what the Maimon is talking about, Stalin and a Yid, and Lahavdil Elf dollars in the Rebbe, it doesn't matter. The level of godliness doesn't matter. It's way above all these things. So the question is, if he reached that level, that these things are equal, that the good and the bad are equal, then why didn't it work? We know it didn't work, but why? And it's very important. And also, when you learn this, you'll see there's a very important perspective on life we get from this. Thank you, everyone, for joining.